Hi everybody, I'm Grandmaster Levan Aroshidze, and today I would like to speak about the rook. Well, what I mean, actually it would be more correct to say that I would like to speak about one of the abilities that rook could demonstrate during the game, and I want to show that rook is very flexible piece. What we know about the rooks? Well, the rook needs an open file because let's say it has very long legs, and it would be very good if rook can enter on the 7th rank, for example, or the 2nd rank, depends, because normally there are placed a huge number of the opponent's pawns. But what could we do if we don't have an open files, or simply we don't have an access to the 7th rank or on the 8th rank? This is what I would like to show you today. Rook can make one little trick, and it can be activated from the 3rd rank, from the 4th rank, even from the 5th, depends on the position. The idea is that as there are no open files, or as I don't have an access on the 7th rank, I would like to activate rook by putting it in front of my own pawns. It will give him an open files, and it will give to the rook access to the targets. This idea could be used, for example, in the opening or in the middle game in order to attack the opponent's king, even in the end game to pressure some weak pawn, because as we see, when our rook is placed in front of our pawns, there's nothing that could close his controlling area. So now let's see this idea in a real practical games. For example, first of all, I would like to show you the examples from my own practice. It happened to me about 2 years ago. I was playing with white, and as we see, white has quite promising position. We have a pair of bishops, a better pawn construction because there are a lot of islands in the black's position, 1, 2, 3. There is an object for the attack, the target, so definitely white has a very solid advantage, and I was feeling it very well during the game, but I failed to find the best way to use it, to use my advantage. And then when I came back to the hotel and analyzed a little bit the position, I became a little bit angry because I should use the idea that I knew very well, and I was quite often showing it to my pupils, but sometimes this happened. As you already probably understood, the best way to increase the advantage by white is to play rook e3. The idea is that now I'm getting access to the target, a7 pawn. I'm already disturbing this bishop, and later by placing on a5 I could pressure also pawn c5. So rook immediately gets huge activity. By the way, maybe at some point we could also double the rooks. So rook e3 is a really very strong continuation. What could black do against rook e3? Probably he needs to protect a7 pawn, and one of the logical continuations looks to me rook f7. Okay, we could double the rook, pressure on e6, and after, let's say, rook e7, we go for rook a3. Bishop c8 looks only logical move for black here, and well, what could we do? At some point we could pressure now this pawn, provoke the advance, c5, c4, and later try to destroy black's pawn chain in the center. That would get that would let us to get better access to the central squares, and it will clearly weaken dark squares in the black's position, as he doesn't have a dark squared bishop. But when we have such a huge advantage and we control the situation, as all the great players, great champions, classics were teaching us, it's important to not hurry and improve the position step by step. So I would not hurry also with rook a7, for example. I like very much here move bishop f3. It's like limiting the knight f6, and at some point also preparing g4, g5. And well, rook a7 can be made on the next moves. It's not a problem. For example, let's say king f7, for example, g4. Black doesn't have an active plan, he has to wait. Rook d8, rook a5, already it's time. I don't think that c4 is good move, because as we already mentioned, now we get an access, we're gonna get a target to pressure, and at some point if black will be forced to take like this, we will have additional options to attack this weakness. So this is not very good pawn advance for black. Also, we should mention that this pawn chain will extremely limit c8 bishop. So probably black would try to play something like rook c7. Okay, anyway, g5, knight e8, let's say, bishop e3. We're gonna force advance of one of those pawns. Now c4 looks like is losing the pawn, so black is obviously forced to play d4. Okay, we just play bishop f2, and the next step will be or rook e5 attacking this pawn, or just trying to prepare c3, destroy this pawn chain, and create now a lot of weaknesses in the black's position. As we see, white already gets something like nearly decisive advantage. So everything's thanks to this great rook activation idea. We are the third rank in front of our pawns. Let's look at another example. And it's funny that this happened again in my game, and again with the same opponent, Corey, but it was played 1 year later. This time I didn't fail to find the correct continuation. Black has a little bit doubtful position, because there are again the problems with the dark squares, sorry. And we have the space advantage. Pair of bishops are really strong because position is quite open, and black still did not finish the development. So, well, first of all, looks like that we should double the rooks. It's one of the most natural continuation in this position, finishing development. But much stronger is rook d3. With the same idea. Yes, we want to double the rooks at some point, but also white would like to attack here targets and provoke some weakening moves, some moves that could weaken a lot black's position, like for example g7, g6, because after this move black squares will be just in terrible situations there. My opponent decided to play a5. Probably the idea was to play b6 and then bishop a6. Yes, looks like logical, but it's slow. Rook g3, and for example, if black already would play g6, for example, we could continue with move like bishop h6. This pawn cannot be taken because of bishop g7, and we're gonna pressure now f7 pawn or h4, h5, creating additional weaknesses. My opponent didn't want to play g6, but obviously it's not possible to avoid that move. After rook g8, anyway, bishop h6 is coming, and we are forcing to play g6. Well, g6, and again now rook f3. f7 pawn is falling. Okay, looks like knight e5 is possible, but bishop f4, f6, bishop g3, and on the next move we will take on f6 and black's position is just destroyed. What else black could do? For example, instead of knight takes c5, no, there's no other move. There's no simply other move. Maybe after bishop h6, immediately knight takes e5 is possible. But anyway, bishop takes g7, knight g6, check, using the moment of the pin. Bishop, king b6, and again pressuring here the knight using the point of the pin. h7 pawn is very weak. After pushing away the knight g6, maybe rook from the 4th rank again will enter into the game. White is dominating. So this time this rook activation idea helped me a lot. So let's check one more game from my practice and then switch to the other, maybe more known games in the chess world. I was playing with white in this next position, and obviously white has quite solid advantage. Black's pawn construction is really very bad, and it's not just matter of the king side. I would say that pawn a5, for example, is fixed on the wrong color for the black bishop, because probably we know the matter of the black bishop. What is this in the chess, right? The bad bishop is the bishop which has own pawns on the same color. It means that bishop is limited and passive by own pawns, and logically the opponent's pawns are placed on the opposite color. So we get the situation when bishop cannot attack opponent's pawn and only may protect his own pawns. It's very passive situation for the bishop. Right now, for example, like now, with the a5 pawn, great. Bishop f8 never can attack my a4 pawn, and I can attack later a5 pawn with my bishop. So it's a really very bad bishop on f8. Plus bad pawn construction on the king side. So white has very solid advantage. When I was thinking about the next move, I would like to play bishop d4. This is what looks like the most natural continuation. Pressuring f6 and well, asking this e5 rook what he's going to do. But okay, before we made a move, we of course should calculate all the possibilities that opponent could play. And well, I didn't have many questions about exchange, because later he should protect pawn f6 and it was again my turn to play, and okay, I could find something there, somehow activate the rook or try to find another way. But I had questions about rook f5. When the opponent has a problem in a strategical view, he has to find, or at least search, the escape, the compensation, the count chances, and the dynamical play in the activity, in the opposite subject of the strategy. So to maintain the rook alive and as much pieces as possible probably looks natural for black. And now I thought he would like to play c5, pushing my bishop away, and then entering on d3. Activity, dynamical play. He has to create target to pressure and limit my possibilities. Later c4 could be possible, and I was really worrying about this c3 pawn that could become a target, and I didn't want to let him to get some active play with his rooks. So I was calculating the possibilities, what to do after rook f5. And I'm very proud that I found very good continuation here. Rook e4. This nice move, activating rook from the this time 4th rank, is solving all possible problems for the future. For example, now after c5, bishop e3 and rook d3, it's just like, you know, just strike in the air, just nothing, because white is putting this rook on the c4 square in front of our pawns, and it gets the great position there, protecting this c3, protecting a4, attacking c5, and if necessary, for example after rook b8, it could attack also black king. Just by placing rook on c4, black's activity and threats are disappearing. So after finding this move, of course I played bravely bishop d4. My opponent decided to exchange on e1, and now he protects f6 pawn by playing king g7. So I start thinking what to do now. Looks like bishop is placed quite well, but I have to do something with my rook. So okay, we know rook needs an open files, it could be possible, but I liked again the same idea of putting rook on the fourth rank, because now the threat is the check, and pawn f6 is falling, and I could also play pressure later pawn f6. So again, this idea of the putting rook in front of our pawns, it's really very promising. Okay, black protected pawn f6 with the rook, and again we have the situation when white has a stable positional advantage, and there is no need to hurry. We have to improve our position as much as we can, and only after that try to force the situation. So what could we improve in our position? We have to take a look about our pieces and the pawn construction. So now of course we understood that king should be activated going closer to the center, because king in the end game is probably the most important piece. King e1, king f1. Never forget about the king activity in the end game. And black decided to offer the rook exchange here, and also, by the way, after this exchange he could improve his pawn construction more or less. And looks like that the possible moves that we should calculate here is something like f3 or going somewhere with the rook on the king side. But never ignore the possibility, the continuation, without evaluating it, without calculating really well and understanding what happens after that. Rook takes e6 is technically winning move, because now we should not forget this bishop matter of this bishop, bad bishop, and we have now more active king. So these two factors are giving almost, well, they are actually giving decisive advantage to white player. Well, also we should mention that yes, he improved this pawn construction, but still black has a lot of islands, and having many islands, pawn islands, is always a problem, is always a headache. So what to do now? Looks like king e2, very logical. Black plays e5, we are going just back with bishop e3. F5. Okay, so far everything looks logical. Black wants to activate his pawns, maybe king later. So when I saw this move at the board, I wanted to somehow exchange this f5 pawn, because if we will look his pawn construction without f5 pawn, rest of the pawns are placed wrongly on the wrong color. So if you could use it, fix them, it's terrible for the black bishop. We already mentioned this. So it looks like that g4 should be done. But okay, after g4, black would play something like king f6 or king g6, protecting this f5 pawn, and this exchange would lead to the activation of the black king. So I didn't want to allow this. So finally I found the solution. We always need to attack the target. It's the most natural activity to attack something, pressure something, and limit opponent's possibilities, because he has to defend. defend the weakness. So bishop d2. Now as c4 is coming, and bishop b4 will not help because we will just exchange the bishop and king is too far away to help to stop the pawn. Black has to play bishop c5. And now, as bishop is not placed on f8, h6 is protected only with the black king, and this is the perfect moment to play g4, because now black cannot support his pawns with the king anymore, because we will just win pawn h6. Little detail that just destroys black's position. Of course, f4 is just a terrible move, because we will fix those pawns on the dark squares and enter with the king on e4. It's immediately end of the game. So black decided to exchange here, but it's just perfect. It's what we wanted to do. Now h6 is the fixed pawn, and we want to go to take e5 pawn. So black somehow intends to stop our king, but it will not last long. c4, bishop b6, and bishop e3. Black cannot accept the bishop, but cannot exchange the bishops himself, of course. So he played king g6, and well, here I decided just to close this bishop in the corner and go with my king to take pawn e4. Black needs to exchange this weakness, but our king just arrives in time, and now king d5, and it's unstoppable. So white is winning. So again, we saw a very good example about the endgame and activation of the rook. Now, let's look at the very famous opening line, English attack in the Sicilian, very sharp continuation. And now we will see that these rook activation ideas are very important and useful also in the opening stage of the game. Here the best continuation for white is to activate the rook and not to try to save somehow pawn a4. It's important to get access on the seventh or on the third rank and protect problems, avoid problems with the c3 square. So rook c8 and bishop e1. Now there is no anymore any entrance on c3 square, and rook h3 can fulfill very different kind of work. It could be attacking piece, or could switch to the queen side in order to protect our king if there are some problems. We have a great knight on d4 that supports f5 and pressures e6, and somehow black's initiative is stuck. So in the game, black played rook b8. He decided to probably pressure b4 pawn, f5, bishop c8, and rook b3. Here we see the defensive job at the moment for this rook. Okay, black also does something like similar. He also controls this pawn to avoid probably some potential problems there. Exchange, then g5. Well, if we compare the position of the kings, white king is definitely better placed than the black one. And I also like the coordination of the white pieces more than the black ones, because they are still undeveloped. So white needs to open the position and just attack. If, for example, black will take here, queen very unpleasantly enters on this part of the board, and also together with the bishop could create very unpleasant threats to the black king. So black decides to play just bishop d7. At some point maybe he will go to the queen side, escape with the king. Anyway, white wants to get access to these weak squares. Queen g6 check, queen g5 check, and now white played really a very good move. I like this idea very much, but before this move I think it was much better first to make this prophylaxis like king b1, and then make the same idea that happened in the game. But okay, anyway, we are talking about the rook activity, and it's just a great example, even if white played immediately rook d3 without necessary prophylaxis, king b1. Now, this rook also enters into the game via the third rank, because there are not other open files. We cannot get access on the d file to the 7th rank or something like this. So, rook looks for activation via f file. Or okay, at some point it could be placed also on c3, it depends on the concrete situation. So, rook d3, black played king b7, and now white decides to activate rook from f7. g6, it's important to not blunder this trick, so of course we have to play here king b1. Rook f5, black is trying to copy the ideas. King takes g6, queen takes e5, and bishop f2, but we see that white pieces are just immediately attacking and just showing much more potential than the black disorganized pieces. So after rook h8, rook f7, rook d6, white one more time shows how flexible are his rooks. They are jumping, switching to one file to another to get the access to the targets, to pressure something, and this is a critical situation because it's impossible to avoid the material, the loss of the material. So after king a8, rook takes d7, rook takes d7, rook a4, it's just a technical position already, and white won the game. So now another example. It's a game of the Wróblewski, I guess he's playing with the black. And what could we say about this position? Pawn construction is definitely in white's favor, right? Black has 1, 2, 3, 4 islands. So positional advantage is without doubts in a strategical view. So black should compensate it somehow with activity, with dynamical play, placing pieces on powerful positions and get the consciences like this. So what to do? Looks like we have a semi-open file on the king side. Okay, could be useful at some point, but I don't see too much attack there so far. And Wróblewski plays great move rook b5. He activates rook like this, placing on d5. He's getting access to the d file, creates very strong outposts for the knight on d3, and in the future could be transposed also on the king side. After rook b5, black doesn't have any kind of problems. His activity absolutely compensates his positional disadvantage due to pawn construction. White did not realize this, and he continues to play with in a quite ambitious style. Probably, as Wróblewski mentioned, he should just play something like queen e4, knight d3. Taking the knight is impossible because of this check, and queen will be lost. Bishop d4, rook f4. Now black wants to take this bishop and looks like he's winning the pawn, but there's a check. And maybe the best way is to just repeat the moves like queen e4, rook f4. Of course, queen takes a5 looks like really very dangerous for black, because after rook h5 all the pieces are starting to attack the white king, while the queen is somewhere out of there, and I don't think black will survive. For example, after g3 sorry, immediately queen h3 will win the game. Maybe h3 should be played here, but okay, knight f4, and definitely some sacrifice will work there, and again e5, and this cannot be a good move, good position for black. So sorry, for white. So after rook b5, white just continues playing actively, knight c4, but rook d5, queen e4, and knight d3. I think black already has some kind of advantage now after this, because his pieces are extremely active, and white immediately takes this bishop. Otherwise, next move could be just bishop c5, increasing pressure over f2 pawn. So now this is interesting moment. Black has an opportunity to take it with the pawn and improve his pawn construction, but somehow his piece activity would disappear. So black doesn't care about the pawn construction. He continues to play dynamical way to control the file, to keep the queen more or less attacking the king side, and takes it like this with the queen. To continue dynamical active play. So bishop c3, queen b6, black still pressures this f2 pawn, that is quite unpleasant of course, and queen h4 was played by white to avoid the problems. But now knight f4, we see that this knight creates very strong threats, helps the black rook to have access to the h5, for example. At some point maybe white queen also will feel in a little bit uncomfortable way. So probably, as Rublowski recommends here, rook e1 should be played to avoid knight e2 check, and just give up this pawn and to continue play without pawn. But white didn't want to do this, and he protects e2 and creates the checkmate threat. Okay, rook f7, rook d1, and h5. This is a critical move because after this, queen is losing control over e2 square, and black is winning. Or he should do what in the game has happened, but queen f3 is losing in a more beautiful way. I will let you to think yourself a little bit. If you will find this beautiful combination, you can put stop the video for a while. Okay, probably you already find the winning move. It's knight h3 check. After queen h3, queen takes f2, rook takes f2, rook d1, and white gets checkmated. So I hope you you realized better how flexible could be rook, which abilities could demonstrate rook in the game. It's not only open file. Rook can even be compared with the knight, with the possible maneuvers that we saw today, putting it in front of our pawns and searching the open files by little maneuvers. And I hope it will help you in your own games and to get the better results. See you next time. Thanks for your attention. Bye bye.